See what you're using it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please note that some of what you're going to be seeing and hearing has explicit language, so we would like to have you caution if this is going live. You caution some of your viewers, but it is necessary for what the DCLE is about to do in this presentation.
Change it for so you can change some settings. You see any better now? Blair. Come on. You want to play the video?
Once you do the next slide, you do play.
Ready to start? Good evening, Commissioner of Police, senior officers of the Ghana Police Force, members of the media, thank you for coming. This evening, we are here to debunk the false allegations made by Sergeant Leon Boscom. And let me go right into the presentation. So as you are there, Leon Boscom alleges that random numbers was just put in as a suspect for the murder of 8 charges, and that he was supposed to be killed to take the fall for the murder of Ms. Collins. However, what is important to note is the Ghana Police Force wishes to submit that it was Roger Khan, who was his lawyer, who made the claims that Randall Bappas was one of the suspects captured on the CCTV footage who opened fire on the unrecorded for this. Khan also said that he has information that Mark Richmond was the driver of the getaway car. So Boscom's claims are malicious and untrue. And what the Ghana Police Force has also sought to do is to provide evidence. And this is a WhatsApp conversation between the lawyer for Roger Khan and the police. Roger Khan, through his attorney at law, and this is the facts, Roger Khan, through his attorney at law, provided the information to the police on the 1st of April 2021 via WhatsApp at 1800 hours and sent the telephone numbers for Rondell Bacchus and Mark Richmond. He also sent pictures of Rondell Bacchus and that of several men in uniform. We have the WhatsApp information there. We're giving you credible information. We're giving you evidence to support our position. So the Ghana Police Force, the Criminal Investigation Department, investigators did not take the information at face value. What was done is that checks were made at the prison since the last information that was fed to the police was that Rondell Bacchus may or may not be in prison. A senior prison official indicated that he was no longer in prison as Rondell Bacchus. But what he further ventured out to say is that, that there's information or chatter from prisoners that one of the men in the video footage obtained at the crime scene appeared to be Rondell Bacchus. That's information which you were able to confirm with with an official from the Ghana Prison Service. As a result, checks were made at the place of abode for Mr. Rondell Bacchus, but these checks proved futile. Moving on, contacting and arresting Mr. Bacchus became a matter of urgency as investigators need to have the hands smug for gunshot residue. And information, as I said, we didn't take it at face value. We had other sources also, right? Who we confirmed, we showed them the videos, the videos that we retrieved at the crime scene, and they're saying that it may or may not be Rondell Bacchus. So as I said before, we're showing evidence to support our position that the police didn't target Rondell Bacchus, as is being falsely peddled by Mr. Dion Boston. We have evidence to show that from day one, it was Mr. Khan through his attorney at law. Let me go to the next slide. Apparently, this is not working. Good. A wanted bulletin, this our response to his allegations that a wanted bulletin was issued on the 6th of April 2021 for Rondell Bacchus, and 1 hour later he turned himself in with his attorney at law, and not in company of Mr. Dion Boscom, as he was seen misleading the public during his Facebook Live, claiming that the police wanted to kill Rondell Bacchus. A screenshot of the Culture News article confirming this is shown to the right. The police station diary at the Criminal Investigation Department also confirms that Mr. Boscom is being untruthful. Conclusion. Based on the foregoing, Dion Boscom's claim that he brought the information about Mark Richmond to the police, which he said also is easily debunked as a deliberate falsehood and malicious in nature. That he brought Rondell Bacchus to the police is a deliberate falsehood and malicious in nature. And it's not, you're not only getting information from the police, you have the information there, the clippings from the media. Let us go to Mr. Mark Richmond. His name was being making rounds on social media and the print media. Dion Boscom did admit that the police made efforts to contact Mr. Mark Richmond and even search his residence. Moving on. After the search of the residence for Mark Richmond, Boscom allegedly informed one of his superiors that a popular businessman from Essequibo was using him to go after Mark Richmond, who's known to him. Investigators have knowledge that Boscom and the said businessman are close friends. Their close links were already established by investigators. So, in concluding, based on the foregoing, Dion Boscom's claim that no further action was taken in relation to Mark Richmond are clearly misleading and false, since it was he who told investigators that it was a businessman from Essequibo who had a personal problem with Mark Richmond's employer. He further indicated that the businessman wanted to use him. Moving on to the next slide.
He said that I was transported because I got the information that I told you about this guy Mark Richmond that threatened me. Right? So I got transported because I got the information about somebody threatening me. And I made a report and so on, and even know. Now,
This is another blatant lie that was told by Mr. Dion Bascom. As you can see on your right, we have a WhatsApp message between the journalist who spoke to Mr. Bascom, confirming that Mr. Bascom was in contact with him and he did not mention Mr. Bascom's name in the article. And he said he wanted to protect Mr. Bascom. So there you have it. Dion Bascom claimed he never leaked any information to the press. A journalist confirmed that Dion Bascom was his source, and he did not name him because the guy needed protection, as is shown in the screenshot to the right. Why Bascom has to lie about this? We all know why. Conclusion: based on the foregoing, Bascom claimed that he didn't leak information to the press is easily debunked as being false, untrue, and malicious in nature. So you have the information there on the slide, and we're going to provide you with information. We did not indicate the name of the reporter or which media entity that report is working with. Moving on to the next slide.
okay, I didn't send the information. So I know it's able to mark Richmond and I shot back because he was late.
So you have the
Stop with my Jeremy.
information there.
They use everything and they show you how them ends up forget how fucking technologies work. You understand? The park up outside. We park up outside, you have to go one laptop and tell them to check the number. When you put your Mark Richmond number, it show that was on the spot. The 90 fucking shooting up paper sharks.
Mr. Bascom's claims are absurd, ridiculous, and at the same time hilarious. I've had colleagues from other Caribbean territories who called me and asked me to borrow that device that we have, whereby you can go to a scene, a crime scene, and input the number for a suspect, and automatically the number comes up. Let me state clearly that the Guyana Police Force does not have any device to identify criminals at a crime scene, as was falsely peddled by Bascom. For the Guyana Police Force technical officer, we have one technical officer, has denied these claims by Bascom, as he maintains that Bascom was never at the crime scene with him. Therefore, Bascom is not being honest once again in this regard, and is manufacturing false or concocted information out of malice. I'm not getting into change.
I have to tell you that Mr. Ghana was responsible for me to journey, from family tell them to put me reach out to you. You got people right to family tell that Mr. Ghana tell them to put me reach out to you. And
This is another astonishing claim by Mr. Bascom. We have the evidence to support the contrary to what was peddled by Mr. Bascom. Bascom said that the police was responsible for his picture being leaked to the media. Please see screenshot of media personnel being directed to the head of Kanu for information on Bascom's arrest. Once again, we have the evidence, and that's why we're sharing it with members of the public. On the final slide, false allegation about police cover-up. What is unknown to Mr. Bascom is that the Guyana Police Force is currently being assisted by an internationally recognized law enforcement agency in conducting the Ricardo Fernandez murder probe. Several foreign experts/investigators visited the CID headquarters, that is during the initial stage of the probe, and provided valuable assistance to our investigators. Let me hasten to say also that the items recovered from the crime scene were also sent overseas for analysis. We're still awaiting the results from the analysis. This is unknown to Mr. Boston. So you're pointing fingers that the Guyana police force is covering up this investigation. Are you pointing fingers also to say that our overseas counterparts are also covering up this investigation? That is how ridiculous and absurd these allegations are. So in concluding, I want to submit that the Guyana force wishes to submit a deal of Boston is not being honest, and he is manufacturing false or concocted information out of malice against members of the Guyana police force, and it all stems from his arrest and detention by Kanu investigators. And finally, the head of Kanu will have also released a press statement debunking claims made by Mr. Watson. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and that's the extent of my brief.
Thank you very much, Deputy Commissioner Jane, on enforcement. We know that it is a busy time, close to the renewal cycle. So what we will do through the chair, which is the acting commissioner of police, open the floor for just about 5 questions. If you can identify your media house and ask a question, and the question will be answered.
Original news source. Mr. Commissioner, quickly, this seems like a very unusual step. The Guyana Police Force, after putting forward a case to the DPP and awaiting advice, coming out to present evidence to the media. There was no press conference when Fagundes was shot. There was no press conference with so many other high-profile cases. Why the need to come out and do a PowerPoint presentation to go line by line if you're so convinced that what this gentleman has been saying is all wrong?
Gordon,
Have you been directed to
Gordon,
come before the media?
no, first of all, I'm the acting commissioner and I'm superintendent over the force. Second, it's a sergeant of police making these type of allegations. And so that is a senior subordinate officer. And we thought it is necessary for us to do just what we did here. Our press conference declared that. And so we're still waiting on the findings of the DPP, the investigation. But this was necessary. You have known why it's necessary. That is not a constable, that's a sergeant issue. Thank you, Gordon.
Sir, could you say what investigation was done when the statement by Mr. Basler was made to the police? The statements in February of this year. Because apparently, based on the records, this is not the first time these claims have made. So what did we do before this public outburst in Facebook?
Dennis, as a good friend, let me answer you this way. I was not the acting commissioner then.
You were not.
Acting commissioner in February.
I know, but what the police force is an institution. When the reports were first filed, 1 to the police station, 2 to the OPR.
Like I said, as the commissioner, I superintend over the force now, and I can tell you what I obtained from when I took over the helm of the force. Prior to that, I was deputy commissioner operations, responsible to the commissioner who was then Mr.
Could Mr. Bland tell us what the police force probably had done at that time when those reports were filed?
Which report are you referring to?
Statements made by Mr. Basler to the police force in February of this year.
An investigation was conducted by the Office of Professional Responsibility, and that is to the best of my knowledge. And Mr. Bascom denied ever speaking to the press. So in terms of the status of that investigation, I think now with the evidence that we have, the evidence will be sent to the OPR for them to conduct further investigation.
But apart from the whether or not he spoke with the press, there were similar claims that were made in those statements that he has made now. And secondly, as Mr. Caesar been questioning of these investigations.
if you were speaking before in February, I'm not going to respond to that. Like I said, I wasn't at the helm of the course then. If you're speaking till now, OPR is dealing with it, dealt with it in the investigation, and the file was submitted based on their findings. When we would have had the legal advice, we're going to make that public.
If I may, I'm not aware that in February, when the matter was first ventilated, that he made any allegation about corruption and pointing fingers at Mr. Caesar. I'm not aware of that. Now he's making allegation about Mr. Caesar being involved in corruption. Mr. Caesar since retained an attorney at law, and he is preparing to commence civil litigation.
Thank you, Mr. Jamal. Next question.
I think in one of the letters, Mr. Boston made a claim that something about receiving a threat from the suspect. First, he said that the person that instructed him to go and arrest the suspect was Mr. Caesar. And then he said that after he received the threat, he made a report to the Bricktown police station. When police confirmed that such a report was made,
Well, continue.
and was any investigation done into
Okay. First and foremost, the information that was submitted to me is that Boston claimed that an individual called him and said, if you want me, come and get me at XYZ place. Whether that's a threat or not, I won't be able to say. And I don't want to get my mouth liberty. As is customary, every police detective, they will tell you that from time to time, persons will threaten you. And the standard operating procedure, we always make an occurrence. Mr. Boscom, to the best of my knowledge, was advised to go to Breakdown Police Station and make a report. The Criminal Investigation Department, we do not investigate threats. So a report, as I was told, was made at the Breakdown Police Station. Whether Mr. Boscom followed up with his report or not, I won't be able to say. Mr. Boscom, as Commissioner mentioned, and you always the sergeant of police, the support officer. So,
Next question.
Mr. Commissioner, going back to Mr. Bascom and this entire situation now, and I'm coming back to why the need to come before the media. There was an accident recently where someone was hit down, a fatal accident involving a particular member of a particular family. And we saw the police force rush to put out video surveillance. Now again, there's that particular family being named in this. And we see the police force for the first time in about 3 years, by my count, coming before the media to deal with this situation. Is the police force being forced to come out and defend some of these cases because of its particular cozy relationship with some members of the business community?
Gordon, I'm not going to speak to previous commissioners.
These all happened after February.
No, I don't need to. You're my friend, and I won't change Gordon. Come on, I'm not like that. No, outside of the press conference that we had, we didn't rush the press conference. You're a journalist. You know when this incident occurred. Today is Wednesday, and so rush came 24 hours after. We didn't rush anything. Gordon has a sergeant, and the influence that can be had from the general populace is that this man is a sergeant and he must know what he's saying. And it's important for us as we go forward to regain that trust based on perception out there. And this is necessary. I was saying at the helm of the force, I'm transforming this force into a more contemporary police force where we're open and we can deal with members of the public one-on-one. And so there is no rush or there is no influence over this. This is generally, and you know me, this is generally my side of policing. And this will continue to prevail. Thank you, Gordon, and please, my friend, I would appreciate it.
And if I may, Commissioner Gordon, maybe this is the first press conference that you attended in 3 years. Our last press conference we had, we addressed the issue in Essequibo. when the SWAT member allegedly shot a civilian.
It was with virtual, I mean in person.
Oh, well, we not COVID.
And sir,
Final question.
I know you mentioned that the police force is not in possession of any equipment that can sort of triangulate phone calls or phone numbers. Are you aware, or could you say that it's a practice for police members to use their private devices with personal software that can essentially do some of these things to aid them in, their crime fighting tactics or their crime fighting investigations? Don't police officers use their own stuff at times?
I cannot speak to something that I'm not aware of. And I'm, as I said already, we're maintaining our position regarding the police force. He's claiming that an officer went to the computer. This is not cell phone, Mr. Gordon. A computer, that we said, at court, and then put some information on this particular individual telephone number came up. That is not true. Not a cell phone, I'm telling you about a computer. And we have obtained a statement from the lone technical officer debunking the false allegation that he made against investigators.
Do you think Bascom is still fit to serve in the Guyana Police Force?
I don't prejudge issues.
But you're here on the case laying it out.
But Gordon, let me just remind you that you're a friend, and so you're going to turn it up. You don't need for that.
Well, that's what the microphone.
Police men and women took a note, and there is some very ethical behavior in law enforcement. I made a press statement that Bascom going to the media and using these profanities publicly, other than the allegations that were made against senior ranks, that is unbecoming as a police. There's a process, disciplinary process, to deal with such a behavior. And so, for that process to commence, we await the findings or the legal advice of the DPP. I can tell you, there's a process that must be followed.
We seem to be having some technical problems at their end, not our end. I just thought I'd make that point lucidly clear to you, that some audio problems at their end. We'll try to see how quickly we can have that fixed so that you guys can continue with listening to the Nancy stories that we're hearing. What's in the middle of the screen there, you're seeing the polygraph test that policemen took about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. That's as a result of that was taken through the U.S. Embassy. A lot of senior officers failed that polygraph test exam, failed it. And that piece of information that is not properly fitted across the screen, you can see it says secret there. It's a document of which we do have in our possession with all of the police officers, every single one of them who have actually passed and those who have failed their polygraph test. But as soon as we get the audio back up and running, I just want to clear a few things that this misinformation being peddled by some of these senior police officers, especially when I believe it's Mr. Blanham who said that, or give the impression that foreign or folks in other law enforcement agencies outside of Guyana do work with them on, and hinted that there's a possibility that foreign law enforcement officers may have been working on the Forgotten case. That I can say it doesn't sound as though it is something that is credible at all. Far from that. But let's check what's the situation with the audio, and we'll be back. All right, sorry about that. We they're coming to the end of that press conference. It should be wrapping up in just about a minute. There's not really much more that we can listen to that, but I just want to make a couple of points. First of all, let's touch on this hastily put together press conference. Irfan Ali is currently out of the country in Trinidad and Tobago on a quote unquote state visit. He met with the acting commissioner of police, Mr. Clifton Hicken, and instructed Hicken to do exactly. We can just basically um, place that educated guess that Irfan Ali instructed Hicken to host a press conference. And this is the reason why this is the reason why this press conference has been held minutes ago. The other thing is, it's coincidental, right? That 15 minutes prior to the press conference, 15 minutes prior to the press conference, this guy, who happens to be, his name is calling, and his company, he being a suspect in the murder of Rogunez, along with a security guy from his company. And now these guys have been silent throughout the process, throughout this murder investigations and so forth. And suddenly the murder investigation shut down, completely shut down. We heard nothing from anyone about what was going on. And the family members of Mr. Fugunes, who was murdered, were basically kept in the loop. They just didn't know what was happening. And no one took the time, absolutely no one took the time to explain to the family what's the situation with their loved one. That is Fugunes, who was murdered. So everyone remained quiet for all these months. Over a year, they have remained surprisingly quiet. Now, suddenly, everyone is rushing. Everyone is rushing to make a statement. Everyone is rushing to make a statement on this particular stuff. They were quiet all along. Now, here's why they're rushing to make a statement. They're basically saying that this guy, policeman, Detective Sergeant Bascom, is lying. And they want us, or they want the public to believe them and not to believe Bascom. I don't know. The math for me is not adding up. There's too many coincidences, too many. For example, Irfan met with Irfan met with Hicken. Hicken rushed to a press conference. Azardine Mohammed issued a release about 30 minutes ago, just before this press conference. All these things, I'm telling you guys, all these things. I can safely say that most Guyanese, we were not born yesterday. All these things. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't look good in the eyes of the public, and it doesn't look good for members of the Guyana Police Force. It just doesn't look good at all. Now, we heard that the file, sorry, I'm being distracted with several messages. The file concerning, here's a lie, and I haven't noticed any comment or any question from members of the media as it pertains to this guy, whether this guy was part of an investigation with OPR, and OPR is the Office of Professional Responsibility. It's supposed to be professional, right? It's headed by a former senior police officer. That's how it's done. Former senior police officer. Now, if you have read the statement by his lawyer, this guy's lawyer, Nigel Hughes, it simply said that Nobody investigated, nobody interviewed Mr. Bascom. No one interviewed him. No one got his side of the story. Yet, mind you, just got to break these things down easily. Mind you, know if there is an investigation, and according to Mr. Hinken, that it was concluded and the file was sent to the DPP. Listen again. According to Mr. Hinken, there was an investigation, and after the investigation completed, the file was sent to the DPP. And now here's the question. What's in that file? What investigation? Just basically, here's what. Ask maybe the officer, the senior officer, that is Caesar, whether the accusations leveled against him are true or not. He gave a statement. A couple of other officers gave a statement. And so they all got together to give a statement, nothing different from what we've heard here now. And this is how these guys are selling themselves out. And they submitted that statement with what Mr. Bascom said on his Facebook pages. And they submitted that to the DPP. Now, when you hear back from the DPP is going to say that there's nothing there. And this diabolical conspiracy is out to make Bascom look as though he's a liar. Now, I'm not putting my head on the block for Bascom. I'm not putting on my head on the block for anybody in this particular situation. But there are things that Bascom said. And it's nothing new than what we have been hearing about the Fagundes murder for over 1 year now. So Bascom is not saying anything different from what we have already heard. Nothing at all. So for them to come out so hastily, wanting to paint Bascom now as the culprit, Bascom, look, hey, let me say this to you guys. I am not bothered about Bascom's alleged infraction or whatever in the past. I'm not bothered. That's not the issue here for me. Sorry about that. That is not the issue here for me. What I'm concerned about is the serious allegations that Mr. Bascom is leveling against members of the Guyana Police Force and other individuals, painting a picture that there is a cover-up, and the cover-up in the murder of Fagundes has to do with this guy. This guy, and that's what Bascom is saying the cover-up has to do with this guy, who is a friend of almost all of those folks in office. He's a friend of Irfan Ali. We are hearing things quite unrelated to this, that he may have gifted vehicles to Irfan Ali and Irfan Ali's wife. Right after Irfan Ali was sworn in, as he is now, they claim that he is the president, but right after he was sworn in, vehicles were donated to Irfan Ali. Now, I don't know whether this guy, Azardine, and his company actually gifted Irfan Ali 2 heavily tinted vehicles, bulletproof. I don't know. I also don't know whether this guy, Azardine, gifted Irfan Ali a vehicle that Irfan was using before he was sworn in. Now, it's up to Irfan Ali to respond to that. It's up to Azardine Mohammed to respond to that, because Azardine seemed to be on, on a mission of responding to things now. He has released, Azardine, just prior to the press conference, he has released a statement saying and accusing another gold dealer of being corrupt, of being complicit in murder, of being sexual impropriety, all manner of things against another individual, and claiming that that individual is setting Bascom up to say and do what he's doing. Now, I'm not too bothered about that. And we shouldn't be bothered about this personal war between Azardine, and some other businessmen, maybe, or so-called businessmen, with these so-called businessmen fighting each other. That's irrelevant. What is relevant is going back to the murder case of Mr. Fagundes and why a proper investigation was not conducted. Why was Mark Richmond not arrested? And Mark Richmond is a security guy attached to Azardine Mohammed's, him and his father's business. That is what we want to hear, and that is what the police should be doing. That is my focus. I'm not going to get into this spat between two quote unquote businessmen fighting down each other, who did this and who that, and who is clean and who is not clean. I'm not bothered about that, right? That is for outside law enforcement agencies, law enforcement agencies outside of Guyana. That's for them to take care of whenever they are ready to probably stretch their hands in Guyana and snatch whomever they have to snatch. And send them before the courts in the US. That's for law enforcement agencies outside. And I don't want these so-called businessmen telling me that, or telling the public that they are clean in Guyana and the Guyana police force know that they're clean and who. I'm not bothered about that. What we should be concerned about, and we should not be misguided, we should not be distracted at all. What I am concerned about, or we all should remain concerned about, is what this guy has said. What this guy has said. And I've noticed somebody saying something about James Bond and what James Bond said. We don't discuss James Bond here. We deal with serious issues, man. You know, please, no distraction. We deal with serious issues here. So if James Bond issued something on his Facebook page in support of Muhammad that you can't keep a good man down, that is James Bond's prerogative. You know, everybody got to survive somehow. I'm a talk show host. I survive. James Bond got to survive, right? So if James Bond is siding with this guy, you know, I don't know. So let us get back. Let us not be distracted at all. Just let us not be distracted. You'll find some of the trench crappos coming up and so forth. But look, back to this thing. These guys have their personal war going on, and I don't want to get involved with that, right? I want to get involved with what this guy is saying. And there should be an investigation as to whether this guy, what he has said, whether those things are factual or not. That is what is important. Do not be distracted, guys, with that statement by Azardine, because the other guy that he's accusing will issue a statement and confuse the whole situation and make this guy looks like the boogeyman. I'm not bothered that this guy might be friend with some other gold dealer, you know, because the other gold dealer can have his press release out to say who Azardine Mohammed is friends with and who he's not friends with, and allegations of what Azardine Mohammed may have done. And that's not our business here on 107.1 FM. Let's stick to this here. And so back to the press conference that we just saw, if we want to call that a press conference, right? If we want to call that a press conference, is that, let's look at what this guy said. This guy said that he was part of an investigation. This guy has said that that process was stymied, that they weren't going to go after that guy, Mark Richmond, who's a security guy at Azardine's business, or his father's, whatever business, right? The police have failed to go there and arrest Mark Richmond if Mark Richmond was a subject to that murder. Now, notice what they have done at this press conference today. They totally made it out to appear that Mark Richmond is no longer this big suspect. And that's what that they tried to implicate another guy, and they talked about the size of the other guy, the built, that is, right? And this is the guy that they're talking about. This guy said the same thing. If they're trying to hint that this guy could have possibly been the trigger guy in the murder of Fagundes, then the other guy, Mark Richmond, is as big or slightly bigger than this guy. So if they're going to try to talk about the size of individuals and in a subtle way, or maybe not so subtle, try to implicate this guy, right? So what we saw there moments ago was merely a Jim Cockburn Ramgood story where they had nothing else to say. And we could just basically conclude that they were forced to go publicly and say what they said. I don't know who's going to believe them, but at least look, this particular matter here, I just don't buy their stories. I don't buy it at all. And I'm trying to be objective here. I just don't buy their story. Somebody high up in the Guyana police force is, or persons high up in the Guyana police force are covering up in the investigation for the murder of Fagundes. Someone is covering up for someone. And at some point in time, the story, the truth will be revealed. But right now, it looks as though the stack of cards with powerful men. Forget about how powerful men and how people became rich, and forget about that. That's not the issue now. Powerful people are up against just a little sergeant, a detective sergeant in the Guyana police force. That's what's happening right now. And poor Bascom, they want Bascom to look as though he's the culprit. That's exactly what their mission is about, to make Bascom appear to be the culprit. And like I've said before, I've heard stories about Bascom that doesn't necessarily make him an angel. But that we are not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss exactly what Bascom has brought to our attention. And we are smart enough to know what to believe from what Bascom has said, from what not to believe. We don't want the Guyana Police Force, through the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Hinken, and the Crime Chief, Mr. Blanham, to tell us what we should believe. Again, I wish to say that even though they are awaiting, and I think it was Gordon Mosley who asked that question, even though they are awaiting a word back from the DPP, the members of the Commission of Police and the Crime Chief have both decided to come with this press conference. You know why? I'll say why they held that press conference. They've held that press conference all because the public pressure, it's too much. They cannot take the PR at all. They just cannot take the PR. And so it is not working in their favor. They want to come out. They want to say something. And it seems as though they are forced to say something. Remember, Bascom doesn't have the privilege of donating millions of dollars to the police force and to have friends like these guys and all these things. You wouldn't see Bascom in a photograph next to the Acting Commissioner of Police at all. It is Bascom who said that when he visited the Acting Commissioner of Police office, Hinken chased him. That is what Bascom said. Hinken chased him. My question to you guys is, do you think that if this guy, Azardine, shows up at Hinken's office, whether you think Hinken will treat him the way in which he treated Bascom? That's according to Bascom. The answer is obvious, isn't it? All right, so I'll look at some of your comments because we're not buying the story that is being sold by the police force. We're just not buying it. We're smarter than that. We are smarter than that, way smarter than that. And we are not going to allow anyone to make us any sort of kunumunus at all. We're not going to. This is something that we do. We fight for justice. We're not bothered about who the individuals are, whether they're rich, whether they're poor, or whatever. And in this particular case, we do believe that the family members of Mr. Fagundes should get justice, just like all the other family members who are seeking justice should get justice. And no one should be above the law. Absolutely no one. No private citizen at all should believe as though they run the Guyana police force, or because they gave or donate to police stations, or they have connections in high offices and so forth, that they can drive around with police escorts and police sirens and all these manner of things. And that is what we are seeing here. The police force, in my opinion, and this is where I'll give you my opinion on this thing here now, the police force seem to be working along more, not for the ordinary people, but for people who are high and mighty economically. And hence the reason I ask also, if it is true that this guy, Azardine Mohammed, if he moves around with police escort, why is that the case? And the question is, if, mind you, why is that being allowed, that taxpayers of that beautiful country have to pay for police escort for this guy? That's puzzling for me. And this is not just about this guy, any other guy. We heard that there was another so-called, I like to use the term so-called rich business people and so forth, out on the East Coast or the West Coast, Burbies had a horse racing event, and all the police were there. They blocked the roads. It took people 3 to 4 hours from one location that just basically would have taken them 1 mile. Less than 5 minutes. It took them almost 5 hours, all because of a so-called businessman connected to Irfan Ali. Not this guy. We already know that this guy is connected to Irfan Ali. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, right? No ifs, ands, or buts about that at all. And so, why are these, if you want to call them businessmen, why are they given police protection? Why are we seeing police sirens and all these different things? Or why are businessmen allowed to use police sirens? Drive on the road as though they own the road. Some of them behave as though not only do they own the road, but that they own Guyana. And so they come to you with this sad story, wanting you to basically to garner up sympathy, that we must feel sorry for them, and people are after them, and they are good people, and all manner of that. I don't buy in those Jim Cock bring Ram good story, and I don't want anybody to come to me with that at all. Maybe they can go to James Bond, and James Bond and say, can't keep a good man down, and these sort of things. James Bond knows why he has to say that, not me. I'm not easily fooled. Not by money, not by riches, not by nothing. Absolutely nothing other than justice. So I'm looking at some of your comments. I was hoping to have Mr. Nigel Hughes on with me for a couple of minutes, and that's why, if you notice, I'm a little distracted. But let me see. Rhonda Squares. Hey, how are you doing, Rhonda? Rhonda said, when you have money in Guyana, money talk and BS walk. Maybe we should sing a song for that. I noticed a comment here. Okay, who's that? I'm checking some of your comments, right? I'm checking some of your comments. Some of them are funny. Some of them are a target. This particular one on the screen, I probably wouldn't read that, but you guys can read it, right? It's a sad situation as to what's happening in Guyana. And we've got to be careful. We've got to be extra careful that they're going to want to go after physically. They are going to want to go after Bascom, because they already, if you see, these guys are ganging up. They're ganging up, and they're not that smart. They're not that smart, just like they've used the same lawyer. They're not that smart at all. Then they gang up against each other now. They gang up against each other, with each other. And one issued a statement first, and then the other one. Let's look at these friends. Let's look at these friends. So This guy, Azardine, issued a statement, a long statement. I don't even, talking about some irrelevant things that I don't want to hear about. And I know most of you don't want to hear about as well. Who give who money, who lend who money, who think, who look after forgiveness, who load, all manner of things. And the question is, why would he want to hurt or kill Fagundes? Ridiculous, man. People could be close. I know people who are best friends who eliminated best friends. There are people who eliminated, their own parents for land and all sorts of things. Yeah, so this whole long dotish statement in adding up, it didn't make sense to me. And surely, here's what I probably do with that statement and that press conference. That's probably what we should do with that, right? So let me check out some of your comments, and just to have you guys know again that you should not believe the police version. The police version should have been something where, let us say, there was an investigation, and they were able to partake in that investigation to say their side of the story. So they've rushed out publicly to stymie the whole process and to make Boscombe look as though he is the culprit, he is the bad guy, and he's being used by some gold dealer, right? Some gold dealer. And that's what this is about. That's what they want us to believe. Again, I'd say this, that Boscombe is no angel, but all of those guys are no angels as well. This guy is definitely no angel. This guy here is definitely no angel. I mean, you name me an angel, but there's still some really nice, soft, quiet angels, But when people rush out there to paint a picture as though they're angels, I don't know. Anyways, look, I have a show later on this evening, and I may probably try to have Nigel Hughes on by then. It's not adding up. This is Guyana, right? Look, some of you probably who saw my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page was that a senior police officer has applied for asylum in the United States of America. A senior police officer. Now, I'm definitely in possession of the name of the police officer. I know who that police officer is. And then I've noticed some folks asking me if it is X, Y, and Z. I'm just not going to say it at the moment, but I know who that police officer is that has filed for asylum, applied for asylum in the United States of America. Of course, lots of reason behind that: corruption, fear, and all manner of things. So that's all I wish to say, that indeed a police officer has filed for asylum in the United States of America. I repeat, a police officer, a senior police officer, serving member of the Guyana Police Force, has filed for asylum in the United States of America. And this document that we have here, if you read it, you'll see it says disclaimer, right? Polygraph test results should never be used as a single basis for selection or rejection. Secret. This is a secret document with all the names of senior members of the Guyana Police Force who have passed their polygraph test, and all the names of those who have failed their polygraph test, and their reason for failing the polygraph test. If you see some of the reasons, it may shock some of you guys. Some of the questions are basically, are you involved in bribery, corruption, sexual favors, drug dealers, money laundering, all manner of things. You will be surprised. Some of the people who have failed that polygraph test. Why do you think I don't believe these guys? Why do you think I just don't believe most of these guys? And when I saw that list of all of them and the reasons why they have failed their polygraph test, all I can say is we've got to do more than praying for Guyana. We've just got to do more than praying. Somebody's saying here that document should be published. It could be published. It could be published, but it is what it is for now. Again, a senior police officer has applied for asylum in the United States of America. Senior police officers, some of whom visas were revoked. Some people who disguise as businessmen may very well see arrest warrants issued for them to be extradited to the United States of America. Now, let me just clear up one thing that Mr. Blanham said. And he gave the impression that law enforcement officers from overseas agencies are there to assist them in not every cases. In fact, I don't think they have any other choice but to work along with law enforcement agencies concerning a particular type or kind of case. And Mr. Blanham is aware of those cases as well. So I'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock. Hopefully I'll have Mr. Nigel Hughes to be on with me, and we'll talk a little bit about this so-called press conference. Don't be distracted. Don't be fooled. Don't get into their personal beef, who businessmen get beef with another businessman and all these manner of things. Don't fall for the propaganda coming from the police force. But listen to what Mr. Bascom has said. We're grown-ups. We know what is true, and maybe some other things that we just tossed aside, and let's deal with the real issue. And here's where I call on the Guyana Police Force to continue with their investigation in the murder of Mr. Fagundes. If they have to arrest Mark Richmond to question him along with Azardine Mohammed, then they should move right ahead with that investigation. That is what folks are concerned about. And so I'll take my leave of absence until later tonight, right here on 107.1 FM. You've got to go. God bless you.
Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright, let your light shine right. Respect your fellow man as you should. Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright, let your light shine right. Respect your fellow man as you should. The evil that men do lives after them. The evil that men do lives after them. Your evil today will blight your tomorrow. So do good today and avoid your sorrow. Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright, let your light shine right. Respect your fellow man as you should. Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright, let your light shine right. Respect your fellow man as you should. The evil that men do lives after them. The evil that men do lives after them. Your evil today will blight your tomorrow. So do good today and avoid your sorrow. Take the message, everybody. Take warning. You better take warning. Take warning. You better do good. Let your light shine bright. Let your light shine right. Respect your fellow man as you should. Take warning. Take warning. You better 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 take warning.
If you're a homeowner in New York and you're still paying for electricity, then you could be missing